Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is SJP, the host of the SJP Files. Have you heard about Anchor? If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Once again, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first episode of the Technical File podcast on Amazon, not Amazon, sorry. It's been a weird day. On Anchor for the very first time. Now, this show has gone through a myriad of changes over the last couple years. But I finally got the equipment that I wanted, and now I'm back on Anchor. I'm still gonna keep Spreaker in a reduced capacity, but I know most of my listeners listen to me here on Anchor. So, with that being said, welcome to the very first episode of the Technical File podcast. Today, we're going to hit a myriad of issues in the NBA. Last night, the Phoenix Suns closed out the Los Angeles Clippers. And tonight, the Milwaukee Bucks and Milwaukee Bucks. Sorry, new headphones. Anyway, the Milwaukee Bucks and the Atlanta Hawks are going at it for Game 5, series tied 2-2. We have a host of coaching hires, Boston Celtics, Dallas Mavericks, Portland Trailblazers, and the Indiana Pacers all have new coaches. We got a couple other teams still looking for new coaches. We also have some issues with the current coaching hires, but there's not much you can do about all that stuff. But once again, we had the Technical File podcast, and this is definitely the podcast I've wanted to do since I started this show. So we're gonna start off. Here's the opening. Round now say the same thing. They chasing the fame. They got one name. But they ain't got what's running through these veins. Make way for the king. Make way for the kingdom. The king me. Checkmate. All right. Let's start off. Last night, the Phoenix Suns dog walked the Los Angeles Clippers in the second half of the Western Conference Finals Game 6. Chris Paul, 41 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds. DeAndre Ayton, 16 points, 17 rebounds. Devin Booker, 22.7 rebounds, 4 assists. Now, Booker didn't exactly have a great offensive shooting night. He was 1 for 7 from 3. He only had 1 free throw, but he was incredibly aggressive the whole night, 10 for 26. And if you were watching the game, it didn't feel like he took 26 shots, but he did. Trust me, he took 26 shots. Torrey Craig played great defense on Paul George the whole night. Played fantastic defense on Paul George the whole night. Paul George was only 6 for 15 from the field after just a crazy dominant Game 5 where he dropped like 41 points. He missed like a total like 5 shots total. Reggie Jackson kind of came back down to earth, 13 points, 4 for 12 from the field. Marcus Morris had another really good game, 26 points, 9 rebounds, 9 for 17 from the field. Nicholas Batum. Boogie gave you some minutes, but late in that game, I don't know why he was out there. Luke Kennard gave you 13 minutes and 3 points. That's it. 13 minutes, 3 points. That is it. Rajon Rondo was a non-factor. Playoff Rondo didn't show up this whole playoff run. I mean, he was there for a couple of games against the
Yeah, he was there with a couple of games against the I'm trying to remember who, against the Dallas Mavericks, but Utah he didn't play that big of a part. And in this series, he was irrelevant. This was a dude who was like so integral to the Lakers winning a championship last year, and now you got nothing from him. You just got nothing, and that contract is gonna come back to bite them in the ass. But the Los Angeles Clippers got a big off season. They got to make some moves. You got some young talent, and you got some talent that's a little suspect in, on this team. So it is what it is. There's not much to say about it. I already talked about this earlier on the clip, so that was like more my instant reaction. But today, this is more unfettered. Tonight we have game 5, sorry, of the Eastern Conference Finals with the Milwaukee Bucks and the Atlanta Hawks. And Atlanta essentially blew Milwaukee off the court in game 4, which is crazy because for the majority of game 4, the Bucks had Giannis and the Atlanta Hawks had no Trae Young, and they were still dog walking him in the first half, especially in the second quarter. Third quarter, it started off a little close. The Bucks were making a run, and then Giannis hyperextends his knee once again, goes down. Giannis goes down, and it sucks. It sucks for Giannis, not for me. I could give a damn. It sucks for the Bucks. I could care less about the Eastern Conference Finals because I don't think either one of these teams can beat the Phoenix Suns. And the Suns are because the way this series looks like, because Giannis and Trae Young are not playing tonight. So the way this series looks, it looks very much like this is probably going to end up going 7. I think the Hawks will win because I think they're just a better team. It depends on who gets back first. If Giannis gets back first and Trae misses the rest of the series, Bucks will win. If Trae gets back relatively healthy, Giannis misses the rest of the series, Hawks will win. If both of them miss the rest of the series, I still think the Hawks will win because Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday have been wildly inconsistent all season, especially in the playoffs. Wildly inconsistent. And I just can't do that for you. That's enough about that. Uh we have 4 new head coaches in the NBA. We have Ime Udoku, coached with, I mean, he's been in the NBA a while, since basically 2014. He was with the San Antonio Spurs for, I want to say, what, 6 years? And then he spent a year with the Philadelphia 76ers. And then he spent last year with the Brooklyn Nets. Spent last year with the Brooklyn Nets. And now he's getting his chance to coach the Boston Celtics, another minority coach in the NBA. That's great, but there's not much known about this dude. I don't know much about this. I don't really pay attention to like assistant coaches who weren't players. If you're an assistant coach who wasn't a player, I really don't know much about you. The Dallas Mavericks signed Jason Kidd. Jason, fantastic with developing talent. He is fantastic with developing talent. Absolutely great with talent. I mean, his first year in the NBA, he was 44 and 38 with the Brooklyn Nets. Then he went to the Milwaukee Bucks in like this weird trade. I don't remember if it was a trade, but he was 41 and 41. I think he was I'm pretty sure he was the coach who drafted Giannis, and he developed Giannis over a couple years, and Giannis really liked him. And Giannis was not happy when he got fired like 45 games in to that 2018 season, and then they got Mike Budenholzer, and Jason Kidd went to the Los Angeles Lakers last year, assistant coach on that title contending team, and now the Los Angeles Lakers this year. Total record of 195 and 192 in the regular season, 13 and 15 in the playoffs. He has won, I know he's won at least one series in the playoffs. Shout out. But he was fantastic. But I think he's a really good coach. I think he's really good at developing talent, and you could see that with the development of Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think he's a fantastic. I think he's a fantastic hire for this team. I think he's going to push Luka to get better. Next, we're gonna talk about Chauncey Phillips. Now, the Chauncey Phillips situation in Portland is wild because I did not know. I had no clue, and I'm pretty sure me and Dame Lillard are about the same age. So I think Dame might be a little older than me, but we're about the same age. So if I didn't know about Chauncey's extracurricular uh extracurricular what's the word I'm looking for? Allegations. His extracurricular allegations in 97. I can almost guarantee that Dame didn't know about it either. So Dame getting the smoke on Twitter for what happened with Dame with Chauncey Phillips, that's not his fault. That's not even remotely his fault. I mean, like I said, if I didn't know, Dame probably didn't know either. Because I had never heard about this. Because I was always heard that Chauncey Phillips is a stand-up dude, loved throughout the league. I've never heard any, manager or player say a bad word about Chauncey Phillips. So when I heard about this like a couple days ago, I was like, what? I got like the real breakdown. Actually, I had like heard inklings about it by about a week ago. And then I had heard like a real breakdown about it on one of the shows I listened to yesterday. And hearing about it, I was like, okay, I understand why some people might have an issue with him getting hired. I do not have an issue with him getting hired. Now, hold up, hold up. I know people are already trying to boo. No, no, no. Calm down. I'm not, I'm not like incredibly well versed on the situation. I have read some transcripts of what happened to this woman, and what happened to her was absolutely terrible. But Chauncey not getting this job because of that, I might have an issue with because he was not convicted. He was not convicted. Yes, he did lose this. He didn't lose a civil case. He settled out of court on a civil case. And honestly, if I was a lawyer, I would have told Chauncey to settle. Chauncey was a rookie at the time, and you on your way to making millions of dollars in the NBA, man. If you could make this whole thing go away by cutting a one-time, maybe 5, 6 figure check, do it. Because that 5, 6 figure check you cut is going to be chump change to the money that you're going to make in the NBA. And if I'm a lawyer, I tell my client, unless you have irrefutable proof that this woman is completely full of shit, like you were halfway across the country when this shit happened, or you were on the other side of town when this stuff happened, or you were in the middle of a game when this shit happened. Unless you have irrefutable proof that she's lying, settle. Settle. I'd have told Deshaun Watson. Same thing with Deshaun Watson. I'd have told him to settle. I'd have told him to settle. And if he settles, that one woman that accused him most likely doesn't turn into 25 women. That one woman doesn't turn into like 20 plus women. And now you probably going to settle. You're going to settle out of court anyway. And you're going to settle out of court for what? Instead of the $250,000 you could have paid, instead of like the 7 figures you're probably going to have to pay each and every one of these women. So that's what, minimum like $25 million instead of $250,000 once. Like I said, unless you have irrefutable proof, settle. Settle. Because if you settle, eventually this will blow over. And it's sad to say that, but eventually it'll blow over. That's just how. I'm not talking to you as like a person, I'm talking to you as like a lawyer. Eventually it will blow over, and that's a sad, just an incredibly sad referendum on our society, that shit like this just blows over if you pay some money and keep it pushing. But that's just how it works. And should it work like that? No, it shouldn't. But humans have become incredibly desensitized to the pain of other people. So I so because he wasn't convicted and he didn't and technically he did not lose a civil suit, he settled out of court. I do not have a big problem with him getting this job. Also, another reason I don't have a problem with this because this was like this was what 30 years ago. This is what 20. I'm saying 30. I'm like what is what 27 years ago, give or take. 23. Sorry, 23, 24 years ago, give or take. And guess what happened? And in the 23 years since this, since his rookie year, you really have not heard a bad thing about Chauncey Phillips. So Chauncey even said it in his press conference, man, that situation, changed his life, changed the people he hung around, and that press conference was a bit of a debacle because they didn't know what the hell they were doing. Not Chauncey. Chauncey was ready to answer any question, but the Portland Trailblazers didn't want him answering every question, so is what it is. But I don't have a problem with him getting hired. Now for the Indiana Pacers signed Rick Carlisle after Rick Carlisle resigned from the Dallas Mavericks. Carlisle had been in Dallas since 2009, so over 10 years, but what about 12 years, give or take? About 12 years in Indiana. Won a championship in what was it, 2011 against the Miami Heat with Dirk Nowitzki, 17 years coaching experience. I'm not sure what this does because I don't know if the Indiana Pacers have a really good team. They did not. I don't think they really played all that well this year. That's probably my own personal opinion. I do not think they played all that well this year. I'm trying to remember their record. Eastern Conference Indiana Pacers. They were ninth. They played 34 and 38 record. Like I said, didn't exactly have a standout year. But Rick Carlisle's a really good coach. I just think his time in Dallas was up. Not because he's a bad coach, but because man, you can only be in one place for so long before guys start tuning you out. And I think that's where he was in Dallas. I think they were just tuning him out because I felt like they weren't there anymore. Now, for the active coaching searches, we have the New Orleans Pelicans, who are still looking for a new coach, the Orlando Magic, who are still looking for a new coach, the Washington Wizards, who are still looking for a new coach. Now, Boston Celtics, like I said earlier, got Ime Udoku. Dallas Mavericks got Jason Kidd. Indiana Pacers, Rick Carlisle. Portland Trailblazers, Chauncey Billups. And we have the Milwaukee Bucks with Mike Budenholzer, who is still their head coach, but I mean, he's been on the hot seat for years. I still think they need a new coach. I'm not the biggest Budenholzer fan. I'm not overly fond of him. I don't like him. I don't like him. What would be cool to say is if Becky Hammond getting Becky, don't go to Orlando. Miss Hammond, do not go to Orlando. Don't do that to yourself. Orlando is a dumpster fire. Go anywhere else but Orlando. I would go to Washington if I were her. Or God, I wish she could get the New Orleans job, but I don't think she will. As for that, that's pretty much it for the coaching hire. I mean, Chauncey signed for like a big 5 year deal. I'm assuming that's what I'm reading. But yeah, big 5 year deal for him. Steve Nash is still in Brooklyn. Billy Donovan's in Chicago. Larry Drew, what is Larry Drew the new Cleveland head coach? I did not know that. Okay, he was in. Is he the new Cleveland? Yeah, he's the new Cleveland head coach. Interesting. Interesting. Know nothing about him. Like I said, unless you're like a former player, I don't know much about you in your little, in your little world. That's about it. Oh, this episode was done really late in the day, and I'm tired. Sorry about this, guys. This was not how I wanted to, and the reverb in my headphones is kind of making my head hurt. So we're gonna stop the recording today, end out with a little song, and see you probably either next week or later in the week.
What you know about rolling down in the deep? When your brain goes numb, you can call that mental freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion. Yeah, I feel like an astronaut in the ocean. Ay, what you know about rolling down in the deep? When your brain goes numb, you can call that mental freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion.